Hey guys, today I will be starting a new what if story. What if Deku could use 100% one for all from the start? There are multiple methods for this to be possible, such as if Deku was naturally capable of using 100% like All Might, if Deku met All Might before the sludge incident, or if Deku was prepared for one for all due to previous training. Which is the method I chose to take. With the explanation out of the way, let's begin. Like usual on Deku's 4th birthday, he along with his mother Inko, visit the quirk doctor, where he is registered as quirkless due to having an extra joint in his toe that people with quirks do not have. Because of this, Deku was bullied like usual. However, this time, Deku didn't just believe in his ability to become a hero. This time, Deku studied pro heroes like normal but also trained his body, lifting weights and going on runs to build muscle mass and stamina. By the time he was 8, Deku asks his mother if he could learn a form of martial arts, specifically Muay Thai, with his mother agreeing due to thinking it would be a good idea for her darling son to learn how to defend himself without a quirk. Deku continues this regiment for the next 6 years, becoming the most athletic and strongest person in his class, even surpassing Bakugo to his displeasure. However, Bakugo just told him it means nothing without a quirk. On the last year of middle school, the teacher tells the class that he would usually give out a career aptitude test. However, he knows that everyone wants to go to the hero course, with everyone activating their quirks except Bakugo and Deku. Bakugo then gives his monologue praising himself as the best person to ever live, with the teacher revealing he wants to apply for UA, and it looks like he might make it. The teacher then reveals that Deku wants to also go to UA, which makes the whole class laugh, as without a quirk it is impossible even if you are athletic. Suddenly Bakugo releases an explosion on Deku's desk, which he dodges, with Bakugo asking him if he is looking down on him, telling him he will die in the exam. After class, Bakugo still steals Deku's notebook, exploding it and throwing it out the window, telling Deku if he wants a quirk so badly, he should take a swan dive off the roof of the building and pray that he is born with a quirk in his next life. Enraged, Deku turns around and gives Bakugo a death stare. However, this time Deku isn't scared of the small explosion Bakugo released as a deterrent. Seeing this, Bakugo is also enraged and charges towards Deku, throwing a right hook, which Deku predicted, dodging it, slamming him to the floor, which shocks the 2 other bullies. Enraged, Bakugo begins to start using explosions, with Deku dodging a few of them, hook punching Bakugo in the side, using quick jabs to numb his arm to make it harder for him to create explosions. Noticing the explosions were starting to have more power behind them, Deku decides to try finish the fight using a left kick to his side, followed by a hook and low kick, then a teep, followed by a fake teep and step knee, finishing with a switch kick and switch hook to the chin, making Bakugo nearly fall unconscious. However, he manages to hold on, firing a massive explosion blasting Deku to the wall unconscious. With the fight now over, Bakugo spits on Deku, telling him that he is worthless and is lucky that he didn't use the full power of his quirk or he would be dead. After being unconscious for 5 minutes, Deku wakes up and notices that his mother will start to worry about him if he doesn't get home soon, so decides to run round the building and collect his book, and also take a shortcut under a bridge, when he is suddenly attacked by a sludge villain, who tries to force his way down Deku's throat. Despite resisting for a while, managing to cover his mouth with his arms for half a minute, he is eventually overwhelmed and the sludge villain begins to suffocate him. Luckily, due to his training, Deku has powerful lungs so can hold his breath for 5 minutes. Just before the sludge villain could take Deku's body, All Might bursts out of a nearby manhole, using a Detroit smash to scatter the villain, saving Deku, however knocking him out in the process. After waking up, Deku fanboys about All Might being in front of him, with All Might preparing to jump off after checking on Deku. However, Deku grabs onto his legs as they fly through the air, grabbing on tightly. He is eventually noticed by All Might, so they land on the roof of a building, where Deku is scolded for his actions. All Might then prepares to leave again due to not having much time. However, he is stopped by Deku asking him if he could become a hero. This catches All Might's attention, so he waits a bit, hearing Deku out, as Deku explains that nobody has ever believed in his abilities to become a hero due to him being quirkless. However, it never stopped him, as he wants to be a hero just like him. As Deku finished his sentence, All Might is coated in a smoke, and after it clears it is revealed that All Might had deflated. Initially Deku believed he was a fake, an imposter. However, All Might explains his injury, and how that affected him, shortening the time he could be a hero. He then answers Deku's question, telling him that it isn't bad to have a dream but he should make it achievable, telling him that there is nothing wrong with becoming a police officer as it is a fine profession. Starting to believe his dream is impossible, Deku just mumbles, "Oh, okay, I see," as All Might exited the building. Suddenly there is a huge explosion in the distance, so Deku starts to rush to the scene, when he remembers it is impossible for him to become a hero, so he stops. However, he subconsciously walked in the direction of the explosion, so decides to check it out. Realizing it was his fault that the victim was being attacked by the sludge villain, as if he hadn't had held on to All Might, the sludge villain wouldn't have escaped. Seeing this, Deku prayed for the person, thinking a hero will arrive soon, when he notices that the hostage is Bakugo, so he starts to move on his own, grabbing his backpack, throwing it into the villain's eyes, punching his fist through the sludge, grabbing Bakugo by the shirt collar, pulling his head out, allowing him to breathe, despite how much Deku pulled. He couldn't free Bakugo. Eventually the sludge villain regained his sight, attempting to crush Deku, however he dodged it, and soon after All Might arrives, beating the sludge villain, saving Bakugo. Deku is then scolded for his reckless actions while Bakugo is praised on his quirk. After leaving, Bakugo eventually reaches him, telling him that he didn't need any help from him, so he should think he is better than him, storming off. Hearing this, Deku thinks that it was nice to be a hero once, and he wasn't really much help, so he should get back to giving up on his dreams, when All Might arrives, deflating shortly after. All Might then tells Deku that he comes with a correction and an offer, telling Deku that he was wrong and that all great hero origin stories have one thing in common, which is their bodies moving on their own, which is exactly what he did, telling him that he too can become a hero. Deku then falls to his knees crying, as that was the first time he had ever heard those words. All Might then explains his quirk, offering it to Deku, with Deku accepting. The next day later, Deku meets All Might at Dagobah Beach, where All Might is surprised to see Deku's athletic body, telling him he had planned to train his body to become a worthy vessel of One for All, however he can already see that he is in perfect shape to inherit it. All Might then plucks out a hair, telling Deku to eat this, confusing Deku. All Might then explains that to transfer his quirk he needs to swallow some of his DNA. Despite not wanting to eat hair, Deku eventually does so, telling All Might that he doesn't feel any different, asking All Might if it worked or not. All Might then explains that it will probably take an hour or two to digest the hair, so they should try working on his body while they wait, starting to clear the beach. After 2 hours, All Might starts to instruct All Might on how to activate it, however Deku is unable to due to never having used a quirk before. After trying out different metaphors and methods for half an hour, Deku eventually releases a 100% smash into the air, creating a miniature tornado, changing the weather. Seeing as Deku accidentally used 100%, All Might expected Deku's arm to be purple and broken, however it was completely fine. Other than some minor straining on his ulnar collateral ligament in his arm, however it isn't anything too bad. Now they had the activation down, for the next couple weeks, they work on controlling the percentage of One for All. At the same time, Deku would test his fighting techniques on the garbage, compressing the garbage, making it easier to clean, managing to clean the beach over the next 3 months. Eventually Gran Torino would pay them a visit, noticing a flaw in the way Deku used One for All straight away. He then scolds All Might on his inability to teach properly, helping Deku to discover full cowling. With his, Deku's speed and efficiency with the quirk increases. For the last 6 months, Deku trains his hand-to-hand fighting against All Might, mixing his Muay Thai with his All Might-inspired attacks. At the end of the 10 months of training, Deku goes to the UA entrance exam, and despite being trained by All Might, is still nervous and trips over his feet. He prepares to catch himself. However, he never hits the concrete, and instead floats suspended in the air. He looks around and sees a girl with a round face and peak cheeks, who apologizes for using her quirk on him without his permission, however it would be bad luck to trip before the exam. Like usual, Ida scolds Deku for mumbling, and Deku shuts up, after being laughed at. After completing the written exam, they do the practical portion, and as soon as the gate opens, Deku activates 50% One for All full cowling, blitzing past everyone, making even Ida seem slow in comparison. Deku easily destroys a horde of 2 and 3 pointers, going around destroying all the robots he spots, making it harder for contestants around him to collect any points. After 5 minutes, Deku is positive he has enough points and has cleared his section of the city, so goes around, saving people, and destroying more robots. Before the test ends, Nezu releases the 0-point robot, which swiftly collapses buildings, sending contestants running away. Deku was going to leave it alone due to it not rewarding any points. However, he hears the scream of a girl, and leaps into action, activating 100% One for All, flying through the air, punching the robot, crushing its face, causing a chain reaction of explosions destroying it. He lands on the ground, picking up the rubble, trapping the girl, picking her up, asking her if she was okay. She then explains that her leg is twisted but she should be fine. While blushing, Eureka asks Deku if he is going to put her down. Deku then realizes the situation he was in, swiftly putting her down, apologizing, with Eureka saying it was fine. Just before they could introduce themselves to each other, Present Mick calls for the end of the exam so they are healed and exit the site. After waiting for his acceptance letter for a week, it finally arrives, with Deku being accepted, having got 170 villain points and 65 rescue points, making him the top scorer in the exam with a score just behind All Might's record. When Deku's school finds out that Deku made it into UA, Bakugo pulls him aside behind the building, pushing him to the wall, asking him how he did, telling him the only way a useless quirkless person like him could ever get into UA is through cheating. Hearing this, Deku tightly grips Bakugo's arm, making him release him, telling him that he will no longer act as his personal punching bag, walking off, leaving Bakugo in shock. The first day of UA, after finally locating his class, as soon as Deku walked through the door, the room quieted down, as people whispered stuff like it's him, the top scorer. Before it could get too awkward, Tenya marched towards him, apologizing for talking ill of him before the exam, saying that he is clearly superior to him with as he noticed a hidden part of the exam. Before Deku could explain that he really didn't know about the rescue points, Eureka arrives, noticing Deku, thanking him once again for helping her, making Deku blush, internally complimenting how she looks in the uniform. Suddenly they are silenced by a man wrapped in a yellow sleeping bag, who introduces himself as their homeroom teacher, telling them that it took them way too long to shut up, and if they are here to make friends, they came to the wrong place. He then hands them a gym uniform, and tells them to get changed, and make their way to the front. After they get changed, Aizawa explains that they will be doing a quirk apprehension test. Some students complain about missing orientation, however Aizawa tells them they have no time for pleasantries as the villains won't wait for them. He then calls Deku to the front, due to him scoring the highest in the entrance exam, asking him what his farthest throw in middle school was without using his quirk. With Deku stating that it was 130 meters, Aizawa then tells him to throw the ball as far as he can, without leaving the circle, while using his quirk. Deku then activates 1 for all 100%, throwing the ball with proper technique, launching it through the atmosphere into orbit, shocking the class. Seeing this, Bakugo charges towards Deku, calling him a bastard, demanding to know how he did that. However, before he could attack Deku, Bakugo is caught in Eraserhead's scarf, with his quirk erased, and instructed to calm down or he will be expelled. After Bakugo calms down, Aizawa explains that they have never used their quirks in sports so don't know the full capabilities of their abilities yet. Mina then comments that this will be fun, which was a terrible mistake as because of this Aizawa threatens to expel the lowest scorer. In the race, Deku completed it before the timer could even start, and for the long jump, Deku jumped into the forest beyond the school, therefore scoring maximum marks. For the grip strength, Deku crushes the device, getting a syntax error. For the side-to-side jumps, Deku beats even Minta, who was using his quirk to bounce between his balls at high velocity, however it was nothing compared to Deku, who was moving so fast he was leaving foot imprints in the floor. For the pull-ups, push-ups and sit-ups, Deku easily completed hundreds of reps, being capable of beating most the class even without his quirk. This trend continues for the rest of the tests, and because of this, Deku easily wins first place with no contest, which enrages Bakugo, who believes that Deku had lied to him his whole life, hiding his quirk so he could look down on him. In last place was Minta, who was pissing his pants from fear and humiliation, believing he would be expelled on the first day. However, despite how much I despise him, Aizawa reveals that the expulsion thing was a deception, and no one was getting expelled. On the next day, the class have foundational heroics with All Might. After getting changed into their hero costumes, All Might explains that they will be doing a heroes versus villains bomb retrieval and protection activity, explaining the rules and how the teams will be chosen. After all the teams are drawn, Deku is on the hero team paired with Eureka and paired against Bakugo and Tenya. The battle trial replicates a situation where the villains are hiding a payload inside the building and the heroes must secure it or defeat the villains within a time limit. The villains are granted victory if they successfully protect the payload or capture the heroes. After awarding the villain team some time to hide their mock bomb and prepare their plans, All Might informs the heroes that they are allowed to enter the building, starting the timer. While entering the building, Deku tells Eureka to follow behind him so he can defend her as he expects Bakugo to attempt to attack him straight away, telling her to run as soon as he does. As predicted, Bakugo attempts to perform a sneak attack to beat Deku straight away, firing a massive explosion towards both Deku and Eureka. However, Deku shields her and jumps out the way. He then yells for her to locate the bomb and wait for him to arrive. Bakugo expresses how he will injure Deku to the point where the battle is stopped, just close, and follows up with another attack, but Deku is able to counter, grabbing Bakugo's arm. He slams him to the ground. He then firmly states to Bakugo that Deku is the name of a hero, no longer the defenseless quirkless boy from their childhood. Hearing this, Bakugo vehemently states that he hates him. Getting back up, Bakugo uses his explosion to propel himself and attacks again with a kick, but Deku is able to block the attacking and attempts to use the capture tape. But Bakugo unleashed another right hook explosion, which Deku successfully dodges. Deku quickly retreats to make a plan, severely irritating Bakugo, who angrily expresses his belief that Deku was tricking him for years by pretending to be weak. As Bakugo searches for Deku, he thinks to himself as to how Deku was just a bug he can squash, before remembering from their childhood how he fell into a river and Deku tried to help him. Unfortunately, Bakugo took this as gesture as an insult, believing Deku saw him as a weakling that needed help, and an infuriated Bakugo says that he is much better than Deku. Meanwhile, Akako reaches the room where the fake bomb is, with Tenya guarding it. Tenya tries his hardest to get into villainous character, taking his villain role so seriously that Akako can't help but laugh, causing her to reveal her position. Tenya informs Akako he is prepared to counter her quirk by removing everything from the room other than the payload. Akako informs Deku of the bad news, so Deku tells her that he will be there soon as he still needs to deal with Bakugo, who finds him as he is talking. Bakugo taunts Deku by asking him to use his full power rather than hiding it. Then he brings up the notes Deku has taken on his explosion quirk. Bakugo then reveals that the gauntlets on his hero costume store his nitro sweat, and can release it all at once with a huge blast. Despite All Might's warning, Bakugo shoots it at Deku, saying it won't hit Deku as long as he dodges. However, Deku doesn't move, instead he pulls his arm back, preparing for a punch, activating one for all 50%, releasing the Detroit Smash just before the attack reached him, creating a huge air pressure which negated the attack, jumping through the cloud of dust created, grabbing Bakugo by the arms, pulling them behind his back, palms facing the ground, tying him up with the capture tape, disqualifying him. Deku then runs through the building at 30% one for all, arriving at the bomb room. Seeing Deku, Tenya attempts to make a run with the bomb, however Deku easily outspeeds him, making contact with the bomb, winning the match for the hero team. Now that the match is over, Deku notices that his suit was half destroyed, due to his punch and tanking explosions, revealing his chest and abs. When the participants arrive at the viewing room, All Might asks Class 1 to critique the battle and announces that Deku is the MVP of the exercise. All Might then states that while it was obvious that Deku was the MVP, they could have all done better, asking the class if any of them know how. Momo explains that despite Deku beating Bakugo, he could have done it quicker and decreased the amount of collateral damage if he went full strength from the start. She then says that the Bakugo did not respect the spirit of the trial and made impractical decisions throughout the fight, such as releasing the giant explosion which could have collapsed the building they were trying to protect if Deku hadn't had negated it. She then says that Tenya did the best he could despite Bakugo leaving, so she has nothing to complain about, other than the fact that he could have moved the bomb to a different room or floor after being discovered. Finally, she explains that despite following all of Deku's orders, she still could have acted more independently and done more. Shocked by the depth of Momo's analysis, All Might smiles, stating that there were some other things but that was the most of it. The rest of their class then complete the trial as well, doing the same as canon. After school, Bakugo storms out of class. Realizing this, Deku runs out of class to go find him. After catching up just in front of the gates, Deku accidentally reveals his secret to Bakugo, telling him that he obtained his quirk from someone else and had not been lying to Katsuki. However, Katsuki refuses to believe him and responds by admitting defeat. With his pride damaged, Bakugo begins to cry. While he explains that he probably couldn't have beaten that icy hot guy, he also states that his massive attack was stupid, agreeing with Momo. All Might then arrives, placing his hand on Bakugo's shoulder to console him. However, Bakugo brushes him off, refusing his help, promising to surpass him without his help, leaving the school premises. Okay guys, this is the end of the first part of What If Deku Could Use 100% one for all from the start. If you enjoyed this what if, please consider dropping a comment, like, subscribing to the channel and turning on the notification bell to be notified about all what ifs I upload. With this out the way, this is Demonic Saiyan saying bye.